Hiya, it's episode 101 for Spacebrains, and we are looking at science fiction film Nope, which came out in 2022.
Hi, and welcome to Spacebrains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 101, and we're talking about the science fiction film Nope, which came out in 2022. So it's a yes to Nope. In this episode, we're going to reveal what we thought about the film, some ins and outs of narrative and film language, plus some deep dive into some specific questions based on the science of this film.
If you have not seen this film yet, this is your spoiler warning. We're going to talk all about it.
Warning.
So go back, watch the film.
Please do.
Tune back in, and then hear us provide illumination for you.
Yes, of the film.
Of the film, specifically Nope.
Yes, for Nope. So there's your warning. So Nope came out in 2022 and is basically about a bunch of random objects that fall from the sky, and they result in the death of a father, this ranch-owning man, to this younger guy called OJ. Yes, OJ.
Otis Jr. it stands for.
I know, and there's a nice little nod to that. And they realise that there's this potential opportunity of like a UFO in the sky, and they want to capture it on camera and hopefully get that Oprah shot, which I really liked. Great terminology. And they want to, capture it and show the world that UFOs do exist.
So is Oprah still a big thing? Because I know
She's
she
always
certainly was.
Go
back 10 years and Oprah was all about the Oprah.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard much of it now. Is this something that younger generations are going to go, who? What?
I don't know, because, I mean, the style of Jordan... So Nope is written and directed by Jordan Peele. The style of his films are pretty young, I feel, in the way that, the characters talk and how they, go about in their worlds. There's lots of sort of mobile phone stuff, technology, the way people talk to each other. He does feel like he's captured a bit of a younger audience. Not that he's young, himself. He's a sort of middle-aged man. But I feel like he is capturing that right language system for a younger audience. So I don't know. But to me, I think it was a great reference in that, you say in terms of media, it's like how big can someone get? Well, Oprah is kind of as big as it gets.
Oprah's a billionaire media personality.
Maybe if you said Seinfeld, right, like to you and me, like, Seinfeld money. Like that was an expression I think someone had used previously, Seinfeld money. It's like, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what Seinfeld made from TV. So, you need that sort of... I don't know. I think Oprah is big. She owns a whole media company herself.
Yeah, maybe she's still bigger to people who watch TV.
Yeah, that's right. I know recently she's on Netflix with Michelle Obama. They did some big tour of the US together, but
that seems like a natural fit, though, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, massive natural fit, big money maker. That I think. Yeah. So this Nope was written and directed by Jordan Peele. He's a long-time comedian, TV actor. He's been in lots of stuff himself, and then suddenly splurged onto the filmmaking scene in, I think, is it 2016 with the smash hit Get Out, which is really just a pure horror, whereas Nope I would probably put into the science fiction horror genre, like it crosses the two.
It had that horrific sense to it, didn't it?
It did. And I mean, he's obviously, he's made, I forgot, there's another... Us, which is a horror. Plus he wrote and co-produced the remake of Candyman, which is a horror as well. But then in the sci-fi world, he produced and did direct, I think, an episode or two of the H.P. Lovecraft sci-fi TV show, which was really great. I watched that. Came out in 2020, I think. And so, with Get Out, he sort of launched himself. He won an Oscar for that script, and it was a massive blockbuster from a really tiny budget, and just everyone thought, this guy's a comedian, but this stuff's scary.
It's a bit of a science fiction film too, really.
Well, it is. It's got the psychology element, isn't it? The hypnosis.
We're not going to spoil it for anyone.
No.
But
Go watch that film too if you want to see a really great low-budget horror film that, takes in a whole nother realm and is creepy as anything get out, I reckon. This one, I feel, crosses those two genres. Do you feel it had any other genre in it?
Nah. I mean, it's got a bit of drama in there and so forth. It's set in a, dusty Western town.
Yeah, well, I saw online some people saying this, you could say that this is a Western because it has a lot of the Western tropes in it as well.
It's got a bit of that sort of, what was it? The two ranchers dueling it out.
That's right.
One of them doing it for just the money. The other one has some sort of odd concept of honor or familial, what do you call that, where you're looking after loyalty. But I don't know. I don't think it was quite enough. Like there wasn't that sort of, you need a showdown.
Yeah,
for a Western.
Well, there was a showdown at the end.
Well, yeah, but you would have needed the two farms to have some sort of a conflict, and they tried to, and I suppose he subverted a bit there, where they went to go over there and confront him and to find the place empty.
Yeah, because quite often, I mean, you saw it in this. You've got one farmer not doing as well as the other farmer or cowboy is not doing as well as another cowboy. So he's selling his horses. But also part of the Western is the space, like the grand locations and the emptiness, the void they talk about in Westerns, in the classic Westerns. So they had that here. Jordan captured that sort of landscape. It's almost, sometimes films do this and Westerns have been known to do it, is the landscape, the setting is a character almost. Yeah. It's like, it's empty, it's void, it's maybe horrific, it's maybe terrifying, it's, it's empty, there's no one else around.
You do get that feeling that these ranches, like even though they visit the city, these places are just so like
isolated.
They're on the frontier because I've watched my fair share of Westerns back in the day. There was a whole sort of series of these spaghetti Westerns I watched and some Clint Eastwood stuff, which also was some spaghetti stuff. But sausage finger. But certainly one of the things you get there is always like someone coming in off just an empty plane. That's right. One individual wanders into this town. This town's just kind of in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing. Yeah, and it's the people inside there are almost like captives. Yeah, it's only the one, the lonesome drifter who seems to have any real freedom. They've come and go, but they're lonely. They're not trusted. They don't get the benefits of society, but they do get the freedom.
Yeah, definitely. So, I don't know. There's that to me, and it felt like a bit of a showdown at the end. He wanted to, that main character OJ, he wanted to stand his ground. You know what I mean? Like he could have run, because even the sister says, "Let's get out of here." Like let's go. But he's like, no, we're standing our ground, which is very, to me, Western. It's like we're holding our ground, But in this case, instead of it being another cowboy, it's a UFO monster.
A cow
thing.
UFO.
Yeah, cow UFO, yeah. So anyway, a few of the details. We'll go into some of the other questions. But yeah, as you said, Jordan Peele wrote and directed this. He also produced it. His Monkey Paw Productions is all behind this. Had a pretty decent budget, this one, compared to his other films, 68 million, and did return a very healthy box office of about 172 million. So I think it did really well. He has produced these couple of films now that I think probably doesn't maybe artistically put him in the same level as someone like Quentin Tarantino, but his name is now part of the reason to go see the film, right? He's generated that trust that he can make a good story. And so in terms of especially cinema releases of films, it's like, oh, go see this because it's his film. For example, Martin Scorsese's got a 3-hour and 26-minute film coming out soon this year with Leo again. And, people are going, oh, God, that's really long.
That is.
And he's like, but you might enrich your life. And I think, looking at some of the comments online about that, the Martin Scorsese stuff, people are going, yeah, I'll be willing to sit there for 3 hours for Martin Scorsese. And so this is sort of, I'm not saying Jordan Peele's the same sort of, artistic level as someone like Scorsese, but there definitely is like he's a name.
Well,
now,
the reason I saw Nope in the first place was because it was Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy his comedy, and I mean, Get Out is renowned and well known. And I thought, I've heard so much buzz further about him. I have to go see this,
see what it's all about. Yeah,
I'm glad I did.
I know for myself, it was like, okay, well, how will he tackle UFOs? What will that be like? I like a good alien film, so what would it be like for Jordan Peele to do an alien film? And that's what you sort of see here. I think the three real key actors, he's got his little muse going on now, doesn't he, with this Daniel Kaluuya. Kaluuya. I'm not sure how to say it, but they've worked on multiple films. Yeah. Keke Palmer plays the sister as well, Emerald, and Stephen Yeun is back in action.
Glenn from the Walking Dead.
Walking Dead, sorry, not Lost. No, I'm thinking of someone else now. Yeah, so from Walking Dead, so he's been given another shot. So some reasonably caliber actors here, all kind of in the minority space as well, I think, which is important for Jordan.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that he's able to, and this film does it quite well, he's able to present just a great science fiction film, with horror aspects, a bit of Western side of things, a bit of drama, a bit of family stuff going on there.
Yeah.
The main character is, African-American, the supporting actors really sort of, Korean and also, of African descent. And
Latino, the tech guy's probably Latino or something.
There's no excess attention drawn to that fact.
No, that's right.
It's part of the story because there's mention there about the black erasure from Hollywood and so forth, and that's kind of part of it. But there's no major black power moment or these sort of things where, as the cinema goer, you go, okay, we get your point. Instead, he says, look, here's just a great story that makes sense. The characters are consistent. They're consistent with what they would say and do. Like you're never feeling as if they've just sort of blackwashed a white film.
Yeah.
Is that a real term?
I don't know,
but it's the same deal. It's like where you basically whitewash a film that should have non-white characters in it. Suddenly, Tamagotchi Yamahara is, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson. He's like, well, I mean, okay, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Sort of not traditional, but...
And I must admit, like, when I got to the end of this, what you're saying is how I felt that, for so long, there's been a lot of, you see big Hollywood films and you go, it's what we're just joking off there before, like, Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, two white, kind of youngish, good-looking Americans. But, you could substitute them with other, minority characters and the story would still work.
Yes.
And this is what when I did watch this at the end, because there is a lot of subversive discussion of kind of race, but as you're saying, it's not blasted in our face. He's not.
No, it's part of the normal character operation. But
it did make me really realize how successful, like, he is really being. Like, so what if they're African American and Latino and well, I don't know what Steve Ewan's actual heritage is, but you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference? What does it matter? It actually works. Yeah. So why has Hollywood been so scared to not put these minorities as the lead characters? Because, the joke in a horror is always like the black guy's the first guy that dies, or, the Asian guy is the first one that gets kind of stabbed to death in the corner or whatever, or they're the bad people, right? Like they're the villains. And so they're just minor characters. The white people are the major characters. But here, Jordan Peele, he's demonstrating that it works. We don't have to see Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, although they're great actors. We don't have to see them in the story, right? Like we can have other faces on the screen. I didn't
feel out of place watching it.
No.
I have watched some films where there's been, primarily Japanese or African American or whatever, and I have felt a bit out of place. Like it's almost too distant from my personal experience that it's just like I'm kind of watching at a distance rather than being involved in it. But this worked very well. I felt very natural. The dialogue, the introduction of the various issues that the characters were facing were, reasonable and well articulated. You didn't get one of these awkward situations where someone's been told they can't sit at the front of the bus, like, and you sort of go, okay, we get the idea. Yeah. This has happened, this has seen this before. Let's move on. Instead, there was an Emerald. I think her character's name is, she's talking about the black jockey on the first motion picture, but of course nobody knows his name. You go, well, no, actually, fair enough. And the film crew or the producer, the director, she's doing this presentation to, is quite unimpressive. Is okay, can we just like film the horse now? like that's, which you go, well, that's exactly how it is. He's not dismissing her or her issues. He's just, he has a job to do and he's going to get paid to do it and move on. So, yeah, it was fun. It was good.
It's good. And what was your number one takeaway from Nope?
Oh, Jesus. My number one takeaway from Nope is that chimpanzees are tremendously frightening creatures. And I've had not the experience of chimps, but I've had the experience with dogs. You get used to a dog and you think, this is pretty cool. Yeah. And you take the dog down to an oval to walk with some other dogs, and they've met before, and nothing's. And then they just sort of walk along, and suddenly one of these dogs just goes mental and has a go at the other dog, and you suddenly realise that you're just a few too many steps away, and can you get there in time before anything happens?
Super serious happens.
And all the dog owners, and they go and start trying to do stuff, and you realise that you're not nearly as in control as you think you are. You think you've got this arrangement, and this film sort of goes into this a bit, and this is sort of the point. But I felt that feeling where, I know these dogs, they're sweet, and then suddenly like there's this fight breaking, and you go, holy shit, what I can't control this. This is suddenly out of it, and you add that up to a chimpanzee. And
which has a bit more functioning capabilities.
Geez.
Can kind of think some things through.
Yeah, and it's quite strong and agile, and because like dogs aren't terribly agile. I think they're on all fours and they're kind of long and they're easy to sort of knock over. They've got some bad teeth and stuff, but a chimp can roll and turn and punch and twist and jump and grab you with all four of their limbs.
Yeah.
I found that part of this film one of the most horrifying parts is this chimp just going
the Gordy
berserk, the Gordy incident, just going berserk. And Stephen's character, what was his name in this film? I can't remember now. Jesus, you always just look at the character, the actors.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
you know the actor. If I didn't know the actor's name, I'm sure I'd remember the character's name. Just him sitting under the table as a kid.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Chimp sort of walking up, going, oh, and you're like. Suddenly he's gone normal again now, and like, but you just saw that he could snap at any moment. So chimps and that edge of control is very easy to lose.
Yes,
it's an illusion that you have control.
Yeah.
So that's my number one takeaway. But here's an interesting question. I was thinking about this: is this hope, warning, or experiment?
So is Nope a warning for a UFO? Is it a hopeful story? I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't have called it hopeful, no.
And is it an experiment? Oof. Yeah, I mean, a good old monster in the dark story is kind of always a warning, I guess. So I think that's what I'm going to place it into. I mean, there's the experiment of can you control, like you're just saying, I think is definitely a part of this film is like, can you control a wild beast? I guess might be the what if of this story. Yeah. But I don't know if that really warrants an experiment. So I'm going to go warning. I think it is just the warning, like, in this context, this monster is hiding in plain sight, which is in the clouds. And then when they realize, they try to capture it and they try to control it. And sort of part of to me, my interpretation of the whole film is like the warning of Gordy and the warning of the horses and television and cinema is like you can't really control these creatures. No. And they can result in very devastating, effects. Yeah, so I would put it down to a warning.
Warning.
Yeah.
Warning.
And I think the thing is, to me, this film is really the same as The Blob. You know what I mean? Like it's the same monster in the dark story that the Blob is. It's all the same as Jaws. Jaws might be actually a better connection. So you've got a creature of enormous power right there. It's kind of the old narrative myth as well. Like the main characters have to go into the belly of the beast to capture the beast. And so, you know, in Jaws, they're on the boat. They have to go into the water to literally, you know, kill Jaws. And then here, it's like, well, you have to be on the ranch where the monster thinks the UFO monster thing is there, and they need to try to capture it and then destroy it. So they sort of, again, it's the old, they can't leave the farm, you know, like you don't want them to. I mean, it's a funny story always, isn't it? It's like you want the main character, of course, as the audience to be safe, but they have to confront this huge, massive, powerful creature, don't they, and destroy it. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? It's just I think
that's one of the jobs of the storyteller in this case is making sure that you understand why they stay there, because I know I can't bring anything to mind in particular, but I know I've seen stories where you're just going, what an idiot. You just pack up and leave. You should have just, first sign of trouble, just leave. Why are you doing that there?
And I guess like that monster in the dark of like, you know, something like, and I'm not saying, because I think Friday the 13th is a good movie, but that trope of a bunch of high school kids go into the woods and stay in the cabin in the woods and there's some sort of serial killer, you're kind of like, well, just pack up and leave.
Yeah, what are you doing?
You know, like you're on holiday. Who cares? Go home, right? Like go to the local town. But what works always well in a good horror, of course, is like people being stuck in a location because they are actually attached to that location. Yeah, so OJ, this was his farm. We also see early in the story that, you know, it was his father's farm and it was their father's farm. They've been entertainers in the Hollywood industry for years, but it's not working. You know, they're failing, aren't they? So they've got to kind of keep the farm. And the neighbor, Stephen Ewan, he'll buy the farm off them, you know? So it's like, but that gives away all their honor and loyalty, and
they don't have anything else.
And that's it. They've got nothing else to live for.
Let's say they've got a bunch of money out of that. Then what do they do?
Well, yeah, because OJ, he really came across, and I think it was delightful acting of him, and probably pretty good directing from Jordan Peele. Is he just came across so non-plus about everything, right? Like he was that farmer's son that. There's nothing else in life for him. The daughter, Emerald, seemed to have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But for him, this was it. This was his life, you know. And I think, you know, that was the point of the father dying in the start, as well as, you know, if your father died and you were very close to him like that and it's a family business, you would want to hold on to that family business.
Yeah, it's a connection to your father. Yeah.
You know, and as an audience, it's very primal and we understand the father, you know, the father, son, and then this whole history, like, you know, his grandpa and great-grandpa. And in fact, we were the first jockey in the first cinema, you know, like they have this rich history. You're not just going to hand that farm over to the neighbor.
Yeah, some dude who runs kind of an almost like cheap shot show of, flashy, make-believe.
Yeah. And, you know, deep down, we all want to be successful at whatever that means. And for OJ, it was kind of like, oh, he wants to be successful on TV or film or keep the family business going, you know? Yeah. So I think Emerald would have sold up and passed it over and tried to get a quick buck wherever she could.
And that was sort of explained, I guess, because she's always upset about Jean Jacket.
Yeah, that's right.
She always wanted a horse, but she didn't get one.
Yeah.
And, it's revealed that, in fact, there was supposed to be a horse for her, but it was just...
It was then used.
Yeah, it didn't work out that way. It was supposed to be there, but it didn't happen. Too dangerous, I think.
So if you've seen Nope, is it a hope-warning experiment? What do you think? Let us know. Jump on the socials.
We're waiting now.
We are waiting. We'll take your phone call right now.
Right now. Yes, we're going to be lonely here waiting for a bit. There's going to be very bad listening if you're going to have to wait indefinitely.
So, as I said, I think this is like the monster in the dark story, the belly of the beast, you know, crawling into it, go into the mouth of the dragon and slice its belly open from the inside out. So there's a lot of horror elements there. And we've also talked already about there's some Western stuff. Is this a science fiction film? Sorry.
Is this indeed? I'd have to say yes. And I think the science is not UFOs.
Right.
This is strange because bombshell. Yeah, because
you heard it here first.
UFO movie, it has the UFO in it, but we don't really, go much into the UFO. What we're going into here is this psychology and this relationship between humanity and nature. I think we're talking about the wild beast. How does this character OJ? He's relating to horses, but then also the rest of society is a wild animal to him, or he's the wild animal to society, however you're looking at it. So we're seeing this study of human nature, psychology, and sociology, and it's being brought out and exaggerated through use of the science fiction elements. So you could have had as you said, Jaws. A shark, because in that we're sort of looking at a guy confronting his fear of the water, and also the way humans panic and interact in that way. But that's done through the shark, and we could have done like a shark, or there could have been a wild jackal or a mountain cougar lion or something. I don't know what American a cocaine-addled bear could have been, but those things wouldn't bring about the same level of intensity on this very sharp point that was trying to be made in this film, because there are other solutions to that. If you had a wild coyote killing horses, and maybe it attacked someone, it's got rabies, so it's dangerous. You just don't. You go, okay, well, the ranger will come and capture it. There are people that deal with that. Same as the shark. There actually are people that deal with that. It's not nearly as dangerous as perhaps Jaws made it out to be. But if you're talking about this crazy ass UFO thing, well, first of all, nobody believes it, and secondly, even if someone did believe it, how does it get dealt with? In a way that is acceptable, because maybe you should say the Air Force, and then it suddenly becomes Independence Day, and it's a whole other ball game. You're not focusing in on this struggle between humanity and wilderness. But you can bring in a UFO, and this UFO is ultimately unpredictable. It is wild in all possible ways, and there is no current sensible way of dealing. There's no other way to deal with it except through some sort of a science fiction confrontation. And that's why I think this is a bit science fiction film, not just a horror or a western or some sort of family drama or something, is because they've taken the point of conflict and turned the dial to 11 by saying, you know what, we're going to represent this struggle with a UFO. And that's also going to add a bit of folklore. It brings a bit of human culture in. Whenever UFOs come into films in this way, even in Killer Clowns, they introduce this idea of, well, what if our ancestors came up with clowns in response to these aliens? And I love that sort of exploration. And this does a similar thing here with angels. There's sort of this beauty to the UFO when it unfurls at the end and becomes its full form. Where it's no longer hiding. It's like almost. It almost looks like that scene in Priscilla, Queen for the Desert. They're driving through the desert, standing on top of the coach with the big trailing, streaming dress tails or whatever the heck that is costume. It's the same sort of thing. It's like this majestic, beautiful thing, which only highlights the fact that it's such a wild, dangerous killer. And it evokes ideas of angels and divine intervention and so forth. But you can't do that without introducing a science fiction element, without turning this into a quest for the ultimate confrontation between our humanity and what's on the edges of civilization.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's my thought on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so speaking of these sort of themes and so on, there's kind of this recurring story or theme in the film. I counted 3 main iterations of it. There's very smaller versions of it. That being that you can't tame a wild creature. or the inner nature can't be replaced or destroyed. It can only be hidden. So, how many times did you see? Do you want to iterate some of these things? Can you come up with some?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I think at the end of the day, that this was basically, it's clever, isn't it? This film, like, for half of it, it's a UFO, and then it's realizing, oh no, the monster is the UFO, and it eats everything. And so that's kind of like that's the shock, the surprise. And I think when that happens, for me, it was very evident then, like, you go right back to the start, and when, the horse is on set, it's like, oh, it's safety. Don't do that to the horse. Don't do, you can't just surprise the horse.
Yeah.
And so to me, it really was that, the beast or animals and the power of that there's got to be really strict controls if you want to be so close to these wild animals. You were mentioning two dogs. There's the story of Gordy, which, is very unsettling the way that it's revealed in the film, because kind of you have that opening shot where there's a broken set and there's a bloody chimpanzee, so you don't really know what that is. Then they talk a bit about it, don't they, later? Then we kind of we learn a little bit more about the Gordy scenario through them telling the memory, and then we see the scene with the boy you were talking about underneath the table, and that's like really horrific. You understand that this chimpanzee's just ripped the crap out of these people.
God, yeah, it's just that bloody shoe that's left there.
Versus, and the foot is wobbling. I really liked that. It's like wobbling to death or whatever. And, for me as a parent, you couldn't help but think, that kid is under the table. What is this thing going to do to this kid? Like, you just couldn't help but think, God, that is really creepy. In fact, Stephen Ewan's character was pretty sane, really, just to be running a little cheesy theme park.
I know. I would have thought he'd be
after that experience,
largely destroyed by PTSD on that. Are you?
And then we get is her name Peggy or something, like the sister, the actor? When she is brought back into the film, she's in a wheelchair with a veil over her face.
Oh, yes.
And she was a pretty little young girl, and obviously she didn't die. We learn, she didn't die. But that's just such a clever little way of, like, reminding us how dangerous. Now she's in a wheelchair, she's kind of been deformed to the point of wearing a veil, Yeah, and there's the mention of the horses multiple times, OJ talking about training them. And then the realization that with this creature, you can't look at it. You can't look it in the eye. You've got to kind of follow its rules and its mannerisms, and OJ kind of figures them out to the best of the ability. And we have that great character roll along right at the end, don't we, with on the motorbike, TMZ, like, I mean, you talk about like the Oprah kind of, same with that, TMZ, and he had the mirror helmet. Yes. Like, that was such a cool idea, wasn't it? And that he was just willing to go, nah, it's all for the shot. It's for the camera shot. So he took on the monster and, of course, gets eaten, grinded to a pulp or whatever that was happening.
Whatever happens inside that,
and that
vaguely
thing,
sexual thing.
What I loved was, that thing, at the start, it's just the screeches and the grunt, and you just, you are actually, the opening credits of this, you're going into its mouth without knowing. And then, with the father as well, how he dies. You hear the screaming come overhead, but nothing, and they're like, oh, maybe it was a plane crash or something was happening like that to explain it. And then when you do, they sucks up all those people that were watching it in the theme park, and they're kind of like squished, and then they obviously start getting actually compacted into the creature's mouth, and there's just the screams and the gold and the chains,
all the bits and pieces
that it doesn't want to eat, So to me, I don't know how many times I counted that, but I think there is a very clear, as an audience member, when I watched this, it was clearly about a monster that, it's a UFO monster, and at the end, as you just described, it also becomes this big, beautiful white butterfly thing, which reminded me a bit more of like maybe like a jellyfish, or how there's those kind of creatures. There's some sea creatures.
Portuguese, is it the lion's mane jellyfish?
Yeah. And how sometimes creatures, I guess there's also like the frill neck lizard. How it's quite small, but then, it does its thrill, and but it can be quite beautiful, even though it's like a deadly creature, even an octopus, right? Like, it can be very sleek and slant, but then, it puts out all its tentacles and suddenly it's really large and like that. So, yeah, sorry, I don't know how many times I saw it, but to me it was very clearly about a creature that, like, how to tame creatures and those barriers around that.
I think the last one that I saw in this was the overall picture of OJ and his family surviving Hollywood. The Hollywood is the creature. So Emerald, the Keke's character, she wanted to confront head on.
Yes.
Look them in the eye, tell them, you have forgotten about our family. We were the first guys on film in motion picture. Like, our family was the first people in motion picture. And when I say our people, I mean her family, literally, as opposed to necessarily black people, which probably true as well. They probably carried the cameras around and did stuff and forgotten about. Yep. But that's her looking them in the eye, and what to get them was just like, okay, can you step aside now? We want to do the filming.
Yeah.
And likewise, OJ, I think he's learning that his family have been trying to face down Hollywood or face down culture, society, and win. But it's the untamable monster that if you confront it like that, it'll chew you up and spit you out. Yeah, and so I think in the end of this, he sort of win. They sort of win by not, they confront, but then they manage to become the monster themselves. And they kill this UFO and they get their photo and they do all these sorts of things that sort of
working to the beast, right? Like, so you're right. Like, rather than confronting it, TMZ confront it. Look what happens, and you're right. Whereas he did everything right, that he tried to, work with the beast.
Yes,
and they do succeed at the end of the
day. Deal with its weaknesses and
learn its weaknesses. Do it.
So I thought I think that's one of the reasons why this film is quite a good film, is because it is, on the surface, like, if my kids watch this, they'd probably get a bit bored because it's a bit slower in paces. But they'd go, oh, this is cool. So there's a UFO flying around and they're going to confront it and then they fight it and then they win. That's sweet. But then there's all these other sort of parts in there which repeat that same story, but from different points of view of the horses and Gordy and even Steven's character. We should probably find out what his character's name is, but we can't remember.
Yeah. I think the thing is, I could read a bit into what you're talking about there, like the African American version on camera could be a bit like how, you go back to that scene with the horse. It's like, oh no, but get out of the way. We want the shot, right? Like, so it's almost the guy just wants to get his job done, and we don't really care about Black African history. You know what I mean? Like, we just want the shot. And that can be very much, like, oh, we're filmmakers. We want to film. We've got to film other shots. Like, we have to get this done. But there is a deeper meaning there of, like, African Americans, as I said before, like, oh, you're not going to put them as the main character. They don't represent the whole of pop culture. People don't want to buy tickets to go see that at the cinema. They want to see a white person or whatever, right?
And honestly.
But like, so then therefore you take it a little bit deeper and you also look at Gordy, so the chimpanzee, and, like, the idea of, like, the scary black man and put him in the character. And likewise with the chimpanzee, like, it's like, oh, let's just shove a chimpanzee, he'll be fine, and he goes mental, and so you can read that into it. Looking into it a little bit myself online, Jordan Peele said the idea of Gordy is actually representative of him starting out in Hollywood and starting out on camera, in that people kind of thrusting him in front of the spotlight and him not succeeding, like not kind of getting the game, and also people, he was talking a bit about people telling him what he should do to succeed. And so if you think about Gordy as a symbol for that, it's like, chimpanzee, it's going to just do this, it'll be fine. No, it rips everyone's head off because it's not really designed to be on a set with cameras and lights and children, and
it's a bit unpredictable.
Yeah, it's a bit more unpredictable. So but he was talking about the horrors of being a young comedian and being thrust into spotlights and stuff like that. So, but I do think there is that sort of deeper meaning to this, because if you look at all of his stuff, there is a lot of subversive African American, culture. And in this context, I think he's kind of gone down now the path of like filmmaking and TV and how black people have been represented in that, because that's a story he knows well himself. But what he does very well is it's not lectured to us, I don't think. I think it is deep. No. I mean, I didn't know Gordy represents him. That's something that's quite deep. I don't know if anyone would actually read that without him saying that. But, once he says that, okay, yeah. So, yeah, you were a young comedian, you tried out in TV in Hollywood and you've been thrust around.
Then you produced a film and ripped everyone's head off. Ripped everyone's
heads off, surprised everyone, So, yeah, okay, I can understand that. So, yeah, but there is some definitely deeper meaning to him. As I said, if you look at the Lovecraft TV show that came out in 2020, I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head what he wrote and directed, but he did produce it. Monkey Paw produced it all, and it's all African American stories around horror and sci-fi. So they change up those stories, and yeah, again, there's some great horror and sci-fi elements in there. And but again, there's a lot of that kind of white power over black people and, the racism that underwhelms the society and all that kind of in America. So, yeah, he definitely likes to touch on that, and we see that in Get Out and stuff as well. So you're saying there the monster and the creatures is a thematic that came around that you saw in the film. Is that the science that you think this film is trying to touch upon?
Yeah, I think the science here is kind of a social science in many ways. Like it doesn't go into, how is it sucking people up? How's it eating them? How's it flying? None of that's really kind of addressed. There's a little bit there about its interfering with electronics, but it doesn't go into what that is. But it does bring up all of the ideas and thoughts that come from the stories that people tell about alien encounters. There's always electronics failing, lights turning off. It talks about, people being raised up in a beam. And usually that's kind of the, in many cases, that's sort of a holy experience or a euphoric experience. Sometimes it's horrific. And
put a probe up my butt.
Yeah, I don't know where the whole butt probing comes from.
They just love it, aliens. They love it.
Yeah, you'd think they've just got MRIs. They could just do an MRI of us and be done with it.
They can beam me up. Why are they sticking?
How many times do they have to deal with us? I don't quite understand why, but it does go into a lot of the folklore, I suppose, and that historical imagery we have, and Jordan does nicely interlace that then with that sort of religious iconography as well of the winged beautiful thing, but terrible in its nature. It's quite good. Science. One of the science bits I liked was the way they tracked the UFO with the little inflatable waving arm crazy guys. Just like a whole heap of them in the row going out. That was
blow up things in the car yards.
Yeah, I thought that was a very clever way of keeping track of this alien.
Because you got something on screen as well that's so big.
Yeah.
And it can be invisible. So how do you visually show that to an audience?
It's like, if we're going to go back to Jaws, it's like the shark fin.
Yeah.
You don't have to show a big shark.
No.
You show that tip of the fin and the ripple of, wake going out from it. Yeah. And I know that's exactly what Steven Spielberg did. He just had a fake fin dragging it through the water. It sort of makes it a lot more affordable than not having to have that enormous shark.
And you don't need to see the shark.
No, it's the tension, it's the terror of seeing the crazy inflatable waving arm men slowly dropping down, heading towards you.
You know it's there.
And this first one drops, and then there's a few seconds, and the second one, and then it's closer, quicker, and then they're just dropping one after the other. And there's this thing, when's it going to grab you and haul you away and grind you down to your inedibles? Presumably, I know. I think this just be my ring. Yeah. It just spit the ring out, maybe my sneakers or something. Be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think mostly social science. Like some science fiction covers, hard practical science where you're talking about fusion generators and singularity wormholes.
Yeah.
And others talk more about how our culture has progressed and grown and how we've measured our progress. How we can observe real world, stimulus and response.
Yeah.
There's a alien creature sucking people into the air, never to be seen again. Rapture, and it's angelic in its full visage.
Yes,
and you can easily imagine anyone sort of seeing that would go, "Oh my goodness, that's some sort of a god." Really, or a messenger of God. They've been taken to a better place. Not really. They've been
just been eaten.
They've been eaten. It's not that good up there.
Yes.
Through to the modern day where it's like, hey, let's make a quick buck out of this alien creature. Could you imagine the audacity to think of doing that? This and that's what Stephen's character was all about. Was that evolution of our human thought to being that we are masters. We have attained some level of superiority where our predecessors did not have this capability, this understanding, this knowledge and wisdom.
You can control this massive beast
as it
for
turns
financial gain.
As it turns out, we can't. We're still just as dumb as we were when we're running around our loincloths, living in caves and afraid of the flying space god. That winged chariot that draws us away to Valhalla. That's no. We're no better now.
No.
We're the same people.
No.
And that is an interesting point that scientists, social scientists, and historians and stuff make, is that something like, say, the pyramids, who go, must be aliens that helped us, because how could they have done it? Well, because they're the same people as we are. We're not smarter than the people who made pyramids. I mean, we've got some new gadgets and more written history and books to read from, but if you took 4,000 years ago Egyptian architect to today and gave him AutoCAD, he could design your next Sydney Opera House. It's not. I was going to say it's not rocket science, but the thing is, the same people could learn rocket science. It's not. You don't need aliens to explain that. And yet, to look at the other way, and this film does here, is we're not that much. We're no better, and this alien god being is still a crazy ass dangerous thing, and we're still playing with crazy ass dangerous stuff.
We are.
You could even sort of say that with things like nuclear bombs and nuclear reactors and what have you. It's
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. This AI, is coming out. Like we're not smarter or more powerful than we ever have been. We're the same, and those dangers still exist.
They do.
Yeah, I think so. But speaking of real world dangers, there's some real world incidents of people trying to deny the nature of wild animals. To their own detriment. Can you think of any that might have been inspirations for this?
Well, the famous one that came to mind is Segri and Roy, mentioned
in the film. Yes,
just straight away that's like that automatic one. And so in 2003, I believe it was, and it became their last Las Vegas show. They were big celebrities, huge magicians. They had a long-standing, money-making show at one of the casinos in Las Vegas. And they potentially had a whole bunch, not potentially, they would normally have a bunch of wild animals which were trained, like Gordy in Nope. And they had tigers and I believe they did have monkeys, chimpanzees as well, I think was part of their show. And they would do magic and, that was all part of the attraction, so it was kind of like a live magic animal circus show. And they'd been doing that for many, many years. And, in 2003, one of the tigers, just decided to take a chunk out of one of their legs, ripped him around the stage in front of a live audience and dragged him backstage. So at least he had the common sense. I know as a show person, and then I've worked on some live shows in camera. The tiger did well by dragging him off stage. It means you can close the curtains. Yes. That was the show, folks.
He'll be fine.
Back, and apparently it took 4 animal handlers and a fire extinguisher for him to let go of his leg. So you talked about 2 dogs at a park. I mean, you imagine a tiger's teeth.
Tigers are terrifyingly huge.
Yeah, and just I think even looking into that a little bit, like, being dragged out the back by a tiger, like a 300-kilogram tiger, that is sheer terrifying. And I think, you know, you see Gordy in this. Gordy was fake. He's not real. He's the same actor that's played Kong, you know, in the Kong movies. And it's not
Andy Serkis.
It's not Andy Serkis, but it's another Andy. It's the recent Kong, like the Kong Skull Island. And he also, I was just trying to think, there's another movie that he did the CGI as a chimpanzee. Anyway, so it's the same guy.
He'll be in the documentary of my life. He'll be playing me.
Yeah, all CGI.
He's got the movements down packed to the way I stand. Yeah, that's my normal walk. And
yeah, so Gordy's not real, but I think that sort of sheer terrifying scene in Nope where, you know, Gordy's obviously ripped up a couple of the actors. He's standing there covered in blood, and there's that foot twitching. I think it probably is the mum or something, and he bangs it a couple of times. Like, you know, it's like, oh, what's going on, you know? And then the male actor runs down, and you hear, you know, thrown off set. Yeah, it's similar to something like that Siegfried and Roy.
Siegfried and Roy, yeah.
Thing, I believe. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other ones. I mean, another story I know that Dax Shepard talked about was when he did the film in New Zealand called Without a Paddle. It's a comedy film. And there's a famous bear in that film who, you know, they brought from the States to New Zealand for shooting. And he's got a particular name because he's been in a whole bunch of films. And Dax naively, because this is the first time he was working with such a big animal, thought, oh, you know, they probably really have this creature under control. You know, there'll be the handler, and this thing's worked on lots and lots of films and blah, blah, blah. And he said, you know, the first day that the bear was on set, the handler literally said to them a little bit similar like that horse scene. He's like, there's no quick movements. There's no running away from this bear if it decides to attack you. Yeah, you're gone. So when I'm telling you to do certain things, you are doing them. And that's what the handler was addressed in the set. And he said also the way they trained them on set, he goes, oh, he thought maybe there'd be, you know, like barbed wire between the bear and the actors. Yeah. And the way it's trained is literally it kind of gets an electric shock when it taps a little wire that's on the ground. So it's trained that they put this wire about a foot off the ground. And so if the bear steps, it gets a little electric shock. And of course, it's the Pavlovian training method. Yeah. And, he's like, so you're standing there about 1.5 meters from the bear and all your instincts are like, run away, you know, get away from this thing. And the number one instruction is don't run away. You got to stand your ground and you got to stand there and act with this bear. And so, yeah, he said it was absolutely terrifying. Realizing and you know the whole time the handler is just right there.
Well, oddly enough, it's the same with this guy who played Gordy.
Yeah.
When he came on set, he told everyone, "Don't look at me.
Yeah.
Just don't try to run away because if you try to run, I'm straight on you, man."
That's right. That's it.
He was a terrifying fellow.
So I'm not going to list off a whole bunch of these sort of examples, but yeah, I think we've, you know, there's loads of examples of there people trying to use wild animals. It's an easy sell of a ticket, isn't it? A circus, you know, come see the big bear, come see the whatever.
A bear's terrifying.
And I think probably as a culture, we've moved a little bit more and more away from that as a spectacle, you know, with zoos being a little bit more naturescapes and stuff now. And I mean, I guess the great thing with Hollywood now is that, yeah, like that chimpanzee looks like a chimpanzee, but he's not. He's artificial.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is the future, isn't it?
Probably a fair bit of the budget went into that.
Yeah, but that is the future, isn't it? As well as like you don't need to actually have you don't need the horse anymore, probably, really. You know, like you could just, everything can be digital.
Yeah, it actually looks more like a horse if you strap 3 actors together.
Yeah. I'll be in the bum and I'll be in the head bit.
Put them in green screen and they just sort of get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading about, have you heard about Travis the chimp? So it was an incident in 2009. So Travis, when was he born? 1994 or 1995, in captivity in the United States. And this couple, the Heralds, so it was Jerome and, I can't remember what the woman's name was, Nancy maybe or something, Harold. And they bought Travis, this little baby chimp, as a little baby, $50,000. He appeared in a number of TV commercials and shows like Gordy.
Yeah.
In 2003, he was riding in the backseat because they drove around. They treated him like a child. Yeah. You know, he would accompany them places, and you know he would go and pick up the mail for them, and he could he'd watch TV. He loved baseball, and he'd drive in the car with them.
Yeah,
and they were stopped there and. someone threw a can at their car because, that's why we can't have nice things. There are people that do that. And it got through the partially open window and hit Travis.
Right.
And you've heard the expression ape shit. It's, this is what happened.
This is the definition of it.
Yeah, he undid his seatbelt because he wears a seatbelt,
Yeah.
opened the car door and pegged after this guy.
Yeah.
The guy managed to run away and fortunately humans can run faster than most chimps. So got away, but then this chimp was trying to be rounded up by the police and it was chasing them around the cars. It took a while. I finally managed to get him in the car and okay, he settled down now and drive him home. But that was kind of a bit of a warning because then later on, poor old Jerome dies of cancer, I believe it was. Terrible occurrence. And Nancy or Sandra, oh my goodness me, I'm sorry, Ms. Harold, but she's basically treating him more and more like a member of the family. Like he goes everywhere with her, does everything.
Yeah.
And there's one day in 2009, he's come out of the house to pick up a newspaper or something or other, and there's a neighbour, family friend, sees him, goes, "Oh, I think you probably need to go back inside. Come inside." And just didn't do anything more than that, just other than, let's go inside. Travis just snapped, leapt onto her and started just pounding and bashing her, ripped her lips off, her nose, her ears. One of her hands pulled a hand off.
Yeah.
Like this chimp's, this was a 90-kilo chimp.
Yeah.
This is not a small fella. And, poor old Mrs. Harold, she came running out and was hitting him with a shovel to try and get him off.
Yeah.
Had to stab him with a knife and he would not let go. Finally, the rangers came, the police came, they managed to get him off and they had to shoot him because he was going to have a go at them as well.
Yeah.
And poor old, Mrs. Harold, she thought her friend was dead. Sadly, she lived. And I think this is actually where the little actress in the wheelchair with the veil, because she was the woman was the recipient of a face transplant, and her hand was sewn back on, but then she got pneumonia, and for fear of complications, because they have to have anti-rejection drugs which suppress the immune system.
Right.
They couldn't do that once she got pneumonia, so they had to take the hand off again, and it was just really messed up. This showbiz chimp went for years. He was a 14-year-old chimp. He'd been everywhere. The people in town all knew him. This woman who approached him knew him, had spoken to him, had dealt with him many times. But it was just this time, he just freaking lost it and went berserk. And they could not stop him. He was just so powerful that there was no, short of shooting him. I had to shoot him several times. They couldn't stop him. I was horrified when I read that because I was looking up. I was going, what? Maybe I should look at taming of animals and training and all that sort. And came across this story and I just went, whoa.
Yeah. Now you're saying about the lips. I feel like I did hear about that story when it kind of maybe made some news at the time or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, that's and Siegfried and Roy is the other one.
Yeah.
Did you hear about
Did
you hear about the bear guy who lived in the hills with bears?
Is this the grizzly man guy?
Who died.
There's a great documentary about that actually, and if you watch that, look, he was a bit unhinged, that guy. You watch the doco, you really do. He made a lot of footage, and so it's been put together. I think Werner Herzog, the big documentary filmmaker, made that one, and and at the end it's the mystery because he just literally was supposed to go camping here and be in this position, and the last footage is him pointing out these bears.
And man is found to be in conflict with nature.
Yeah, that's right.
Nature will win.
Yes.
Man is stupid.
That's right.
That's my best Werner Herzog impersonation.
Yeah. So, you don't quite know what happens to him at the end, but he just disappears after seeing a bear off. And apparently he knew, he'd mixed with these bears, but they're bears.
They're bears. They're not,
they're
not, I don't know, fluffy puppies.
No.
But mind you,
fluffy
puppies.
I'm sure there's, that's what I mean with that Dax Shepard when I heard him talking about it, and I think it's really evident in this film, not only with Gordy, but the horse, you're dealing with these creatures. It's not just a recipe, there is danger involved. And got to be very careful on that line. So I'm sure there's 100 Hollywood stories out there of things.
There'd be countless. And there's that
we
saying.
talked about The Fly. Remember The Fly? He's holding that...
baboon.
What was that? A baboon, yeah. I mean, geez, that would have been a real baboon.
Yeah.
That thing could bite your face off.
Yeah,
like
baboons are known for being a bit territorial and grumpy at times.
You look at those teeth, you say a dog's teeth. I mean, they've kind of got bigger canines than dogs, but then they're on top of you, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're way more agile. So, yeah, terrifying.
Nasty.
So, have you seen another science fiction film which has similarities to the concept of Nope in this idea of a large UFO? Has anything come to mind?
I mean, it's Close Encounters is one, and I think Jordan listed that as one of his inspirations for this film, and you can see it because in Close Encounters, for those who haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil it for you. There's a UFO.
Oh no!
And the UFO arrives. It's very big. Everyone goes to it because it's a spectacle, and they do the famous communication, the doon 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 doon, and a bit of music and some flashing lights. And this is almost, Nope's almost a parody of that, isn't it? Or parody, satire, where it's you go up and try and communicate. Yes, and here it comes to eat this horse. Don't worry, folks, I've got it trained. It's been doing this for 6 months now, which occurred to me. This is like, that's where all your horses are gone. Yeah. You've lost 10 horses in the past 6 months. Well, it's in Close Encounters, of course, they communicate and it opens up and there's a bright, bright light. But then, missing people are returned or something funny happens. It's a nice, pleasant ending, which it makes a certain amount of sense, but... you can certainly see it would be easier to sort of say, but what if, and there's Independence Day, where they fly up with the helicopters with the flashing the lights, and then they just blast them. And people are first going, well, what did we say to them? Did we offend them? Or they're just dicks. They could just be intergalactic dicks, and this is what they do. It turns out that is pretty much true. But I was wondering, though, if we're looking at similarities in concept in Nope of a large UFO, but... maybe not even a large UFO. There's some other films which have had this sort of large occurrence, and we could look at like Event Horizon, which there's no UFO, but there's this same idea of we can control this force, and it's I suppose the classic warning in Event Horizon is we can control this force. We are capable of achieving this. Yeah. And
so then should we?
You actually do it, and it's uncontrollable.
Yeah.
You thought you had the control. You thought you could do it. Turns out you can't. And that's sort of this Nope as well. And it happens in a number of these sort of films where you think you've got this capability. You think you're smarter than you really are.
Well, Alien as well in that, again, going back to the corporation wants to control the power of the alien, right? Like, let's get it and examine it and then weaponize it or whatever. Like, we don't actually even know.
This will just be a thing that we will have and use.
Yeah, we'll have it and we'll be able to control it and use it. And the alien creature turns around and is basically like, no, I'm not controllable.
Yeah, nope.
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 Yeah, try controlling this. Acid blood. So, yeah.
I guess so. We sort of... we talked a bit about some of the styles of this film. We talked about the genres and themes, but similar storytelling style. Other directors, like who would you compare this to? Like maybe Wes Anderson or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, he's definitely gone down a bit of an indie path. I mean, you even mentioned this, I don't know, maybe a few episodes ago. I mean, we have the tidal effects going on in this, which is a bit Tarantino, and it's a bit on trend that at the moment, isn't it? With the indie style of filmmaking.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah,
had
they do as well with
cards.
the chapter 1, chapter 2. So we're getting the title cards, and in this case, he did it with the horses, didn't he?
Yeah, Jean Jacket.
Yeah,
was
like
listed.
they were sort of chapters.
Yeah,
in
and
the
Lucky,
story.
and
Yeah, they were the kind of ones which, I mean, I guess the impression of that is to jar us a little bit as an audience and go, what's going on? The use of Gordy and the flashback idea, I mean, that was kind of like a really... Yeah, I don't want to necessarily name a filmmaker, but it's definitely a style of the storytelling is to kind of reveal this little horrific thing at the start And he's deliberately showing us the aftermath of Gordy, not Gordy just going apeshit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's leaning into, the rules of horror. Like, we don't necessarily have to see the shark. We don't Alien. Remember we talked about that. Like, in the first Alien, isn't the alien creature only in the movie for about 4 minutes or something? Like, if you added it, like, it's in the dark, right? Like, it's on the roof, the chains, the cat. Like, it's there, but it's not even really there. Like, we barely see the alien. Whereas, obviously in the sequels, you see it for 90% of the film or whatever. Yeah. And again, it's the same here. Like, Gordy, we see Gordy. The terror is that everything you've talked about in this episode, like, a chimpanzee, 90 kilos, muscular, got a bit of aptitude, teeth, can jump up. It's quite fast, very agile. How malicious could a chimpanzee be? Like, why does it rip someone's hand off? Like a dog would be more go for your neck and try to make you bleed out as quickly as possible. But rip your hand off. Yeah. Like, what's the point? And bite your lips off, Like, it's not sort of going for the jugular. It's a little bit more sinister, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of almost that serial killer fear.
Yes. Anyway, so that revealing of the story that, you have a little snippet of Gordy's aftermath, and then we're told a little bit about it, and then we're sort of seeing the flashback from Ewan's eyeballs. We see the character growing up. So, I don't know if we put it down. To me, it was more, I saw a lot of similarities to, and a lot of nods. So as I said, I think Jaws was a thing here. You've just said Close Encounters. I also think probably some of those more classic science fiction, like The Blob, which we've done. The other one that we did with the not Space Invaders, body
snatchers,
body snatchers one. Like, I think that was kind of being nodded here. He also does the nod for The Shining, that you get the blood, like the flood of blood.
Yes,
like that was horrific. That this UFO creature just decides to dump, like, I don't know, liters of blood all over the house, right? Like, he deliberately did that to them.
Yeah, I know. Well, you wonder how intelligent the UFO is. Is it just sort of maybe as smart as like a dog or a horse or something, or is it truly a sinister intelligence? That
showed a little bit more intelligence, and maybe like a chimpanzee, it's going to rip your hand off and not necessarily go straight for the jugular. It's going to let you bleed out for a little bit,
It's got a bit of rage.
Yeah, there's not just the eating is the point of it, killing is part of it. So, I think there's kind of, and even something like The Howling, like this kind of morphine, and there's horror in people and the horror in the cycle of it. This creature hides in plain sight, and then it comes out, and then it looks at you, so then therefore it's, numbered you kind of thing, and it's going to eat you up. And there's a lot more going on than maybe necessarily just I feel like there's a lot of nods here to other genre from Jordan versus like another type of filmmaker.
Yeah, I think so. Because I kind of liked the idea that it was a bit like, I said, that Tarantino. You think like Pulp Fiction, where you're sort of seeing different aspects of the same story with the title cards and so forth. And there was some of the Western style as well. Some of the old, certainly where you just have these long, relatively quiet shots of nothing. Just to let you know it's cold out here.
That's right.
It's wild.
I mean, for me, it was extremely enjoyable because there's a lot of nods to filmmaking. There's, as you just said, there's a nod to the Western. We don't really make Westerns anymore. They were super popular for so long. Every now and then Westerns come out, but it's not the genre anymore. Horror would be way more popular now. Science fiction's way more popular. So there was a lot of nods to that. There's this historical thing of the black jockey being in the first film. That cinematographer character is like, he's the pure cinematographer guy, and he uses the film camera,
cool,
they bring out the film camera and he's like, get the shot, even that phone call he had with them, and he was editing some weird animals eating things and stuff, wasn't he? Like there was a real deliberate point there, and it was a cryptic conversation of him basically saying, I don't think I'm really interested in your project.
Yeah.
And I really liked that, because I kind of, I've known some people like that and seen some people like that. And so, yeah, there's some really interesting, as I said, like even that blood scene. I mean, filmmakers love that scene in The Shining, of the flood.
Shining.
Of blood,
I think it's also Carrie.
Well, it is, but The Shining, when those elevator lifts open, so many other filmmakers have talked about that, and it's true. Like, yeah. Recently I saw, I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw a thing that, because they had one take at that Kubrick apparently, with the team, they set it all up, but apparently he walked off set because he was like, I can't watch this fail if it doesn't work. Yeah. But I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a little blurb. But yeah, I've seen so many films where they nod that exorbitant amount of blood for the point of it, and also the little, like, isn't it funny that he gives us the little nod of those little alien men, the little scary traditional alien men in the barn? Like, there is a moment in here where it's him, I think Jordan Peele was kind of going, oh, these are the aliens, surprise. No, they're not, like it was a false
Actually, that was a bit like
trick.
A little bit sciencey, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Actually, that was genuinely quite creepy, because
very creepy.
He's standing there in the barn doing whatever, and it's not introduced. But my wife, because we were watching together, she picked out. She says, "Oh my God, what's that?"
There's something in there, yeah.
And then I looked a bit closer and went, "Yeah, I don't know. Is that meant to be? It's sort of almost a humanoid shape, silhouette. But I don't know. Is it just a shadow in the background?" And because it didn't feel like it was leading up to an encounter. No. But then you started getting this sort of arrangement, and that was very sort of. I guess E.T., but also Signs, where we get this sort of guys running about.
I mean, I know that I watched this years ago. There's a couple of those alien films. I think one's called Communique, and it's the white little, it's a scary film, and it's the white little one. And there's another one, I don't know if Rutger Hauer's in it or not, but it's like about a farmer, and in that, there is a scene that has stuck in my brain. It's not the most interesting film, but there's a scene where he wakes up in bed, and the whole film is sort of that sciencey idea, like, is there an alien thing on the farm? And he wakes up in bed, and in the corner of the room, in the darkness, is a shape of that traditional little white alien man, and he kind of looks at it, is, like, am I asleep? Is this a nightmare? And then it just moves, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like what he did in this scene as well, where the alien was out of focus and he's walking, and you, as an audience, you're like, oh, shit, there's something there. Yeah. It's great. It's great. It's just teasing the audience. Yeah. So it's cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Do you think scientifically it's possible to get a photo of a UFO? Lots of people claim it. There's lots on YouTube. I mean, they even talk about this in this film, right? Like, let's just say they want their Oprah shot. Like, people won't believe normal grainy phone footage.
Well, this is the thing: is how is it? It's amazing that we've gone from little brownie box cameras with a pinhole, whatever, through to Insta snaps and Polaroids, through to we've got I think my phone has a 12 megapixel or a 4K something or other. Yeah. It's really quite remarkable what this camera has, and yet we've still never been able to take a photo of any sort of spaceship. Everything has always been a weird flashy thing or a blurry grey blur. Or
and they talk about it briefly in this film, but it's this mystery of the UFO, because they talk about that example of the US military releasing footage. Remember they released that footage a couple of years ago? They actually talked about that. But is that real or is it not real? But isn't that part of the kind of debunking here a bit, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, I've seen that military footage, and it is the same little grainy white speck thing moving about the place, and you're like, that could literally be anything. Like, that could be a seagull, taken at an odd angle, because these are cameras mounted on swivel, gimbals on the bottom of high speed, jet fighters. And if they're at a particular angle and they automatically adjust to try and keep a thing in center, if that's like an egret flying in to catch a fish, and you're going the other direction super fast, and your camera's moving to compensate for your movement. You can't
it's grainy footage as well.
It's weird ass stuff. Like it's just those cameras aren't designed to capture good shots. They're there to lock onto a heat signature or something and then keep it in track so that you can laser designate it so you can shoot your missiles.
Yes, yeah. And he does, and I mean, Peele does it in this film with there's a prey mantis that goes onto the camera. Yes. It's very alien looking, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's the idea, isn't it? It's like, well, it plays a plot point as well in the film, but it's alien looking.
Well, and that's the thing, is the number of specs and things. Like the idea, I mean, a photograph really, and this is what gets me about ghost photos and spirit photos, is like a photo is just photons, light of the visible spectrum that our eyeballs can see hitting onto if we're talking about like a film camera, it's hitting onto a chemical which reacts with that energy and changes its color.
Yep.
And likewise, if we're talking about a digital camera, you've got like a little set of sensors, which, you have a red, green, and a blue sensor, which when a photon within a particular range of energy hits it, it, fires a bit of electricity into the computer of the camera, and it gets registered at that point of certain intensity of red, green, and blue, and mixes it together, simulate. So if light is bouncing off or being emitted from a UFO in the visible spectrum, then yes, we would be able to see it. If you can see it, you can photograph it.
Yeah.
You certainly couldn't take a photograph and then afterwards see something that you didn't see.
No.
Because, which is the problem with ghost photos. They always take the photo and they develop it after, they go, oh my God, there's a ghost there. And you go like, but nobody saw it. No, because cameras capture your soul. He's like, no, they don't. They interact with photons exactly the same as everything else in the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, if a UFO is emitting light or reflecting light, you could photograph it. However, and this is interesting, is because if we're going to assume that we do have a UFO like this one in Nope, it's not moving it's not using what's called a reaction drive to move. And a reaction drive is like what we have, where, say, a jet engine, it sucks air in one end, it burns it with some fuel and accelerates it out the back. And the reason the jet goes forward is because it's throwing superheated gases out the back faster than what is coming in at the front. And so it goes forward, just like, if you're on a roller skate and you throw a bowling ball, you roll away from the bowling ball.
Yeah.
But this thing here isn't you doing that. It's moving about through our atmosphere without having to eject inner mass to do it. So it's not burning a jet engine to fly. And the reason this is interesting is because what if that reactionless sort of engine is, emitting high energy particles? And it would you almost have to. We have this idea of an ion drive, which is it's a real thing. It's just not really very powerful. But the idea is if you run high electric current through a bunch of fins, you end up with this situation where ions form. So you get positive at one end of the electrical charged fin and a negative at the other end of the electrically charged fin. And then air particles are attracted from one to the other. And so you get a flow of air without having to burn anything. And so you're moving air, and thus you move in the other direction, that you're pushing the air one way, you go the other way.
Yep.
But at the same time, in order to do that, you have to have an enormous electrical current, an electrical voltage going across systems, which is going to throw off, anything that interacts with that will get thrown off in various directions. So you can imagine if you had a sufficiently high voltage running through the skin of this creature, this UFO thing, in order for it to be able to repel enough air to fly around like it does, conceivably that would cause failure in electronics.
Right.
Which is what happens when you have like a solar flare. And because solar flares affecting computers is a real thing. It certainly affects communications device and so forth. If you get enough high energy particles hitting your camera, and you've got like a digital camera, then you could be tripping circuits in the little sensors beyond their threshold level. So you're essentially getting overexposures. Yeah. Which would mean that even though you're looking at it with your eyes, because your eyes do use a chemical detector, not an electronic detector, they don't get overexposure like that. So your camera, you could be looking at it going, oh, it's this grey oblong shape. You take a photo of your digital camera, but your digital camera is just like this sort of white blur that smudges out, and you go, well, someone's screwed up your lens or something. But the answer is that, that same grey photons have grey photons, but the same mixture of photons that look grey to us have hit the camera, but also hitting us and hitting the camera are these very high energy particles which don't interact with our eyeballs, but which interact with the circuitry in the camera, causing overexposure. Problems, So I do like that idea, and it also calls wavy, wacky arm men guy electronics to fail. And I think this is sort of the idea behind electronics failing around UFOs, is that they're emitting all sorts of radiation at energy levels that are not visible. We don't feel it. It passes through us. But if you've got an error, and a little antenna of the right sizes, like occurs in microchips, then you could get
it might be fried
interference.
Or interfered with.
You're just tripping bits. You're just causing logic failures. Which most electronics these days have little fail safes where if something starts going the wrong way, it just goes, no, I'm turning off. I'm getting out of here. Right. So they used the hand cranked film camera, which uses chemical. In order to change the cassette, they had to go into underneath the hood.
Yeah, because otherwise you expose it.
You can't expose it. So maybe they're hoping there that you're not going to get the electrical interference. You'll only get the light, visible light, which is going to interact with the film itself. Yeah. And because you're hand cranking it, you're not going to have any sort of electronic motors frying out or going too fast or stopping or whatever they're going to do. So, you get a photograph of the UFO. I think your best bet would be for a non-electronic UFO. And I think also the other problem is that UFOs are always at a great distance. And that means you've got to use a massive magnifying lens. And as anyone who used a camera knows, you can use a telescope, but you're only getting, if you're going to take something that looks maybe a centimetre across and you're going to expand it so it looks 10 centimetres across, you're only getting a centimetre across worth of photons. That's right. And trying to capture 10 centimetres across, so you're getting 1/10. In fact, you're probably getting 1/1000th or something, because you've got a inverse cube law going on there. So it becomes far more dim, so you've got to use a much longer exposure. And if it's moving at normal, an aircraft speed or whatever, you're just not getting a long enough exposure, so you're getting drawn out light trails and all the rest of it. So you need to get up close. So there we go. Get up close to the UFO. Use
the shot.
Use a non-electronic camera without a lens. You need just a very
the old
minimal
fixed lens.
Minimal fixed lens, and take that photograph. But you might well die of radiation exposure. Who knows?
Or eaten.
You could get eaten.
As this one does.
Yeah, I mean, I got eaten a few times.
Yeah.
I got better. They get the photos.
And that's the old debate. It's like the people that maybe got the good photos are just gone.
Yeah,
they're abducted ones.
Yeah, or maybe they were able to read something important on the side of the spaceship.
Yeah. Don't take photos. No consent.
Yeah, I do not consent.
Do not consent to photos.
No, I am a sovereign alien and I do not consent. Yes. There's a very cool book where there's like a UFO, and these people have managed to observe the side of it. It's actually got Pythagorean equations on the side of it and so forth. And they go, ooh. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's to indicate that this isn't just a natural phenomenon. This is actual intelligence. Yeah. So though it's an interesting movie, and it is a bit strange as like a Western horror sci-fi, let's say. How might you have pitched this? Because we talk about like killer clowns. How the hell do you pitch killer clowns?
Killer clowns.
How much if you got this idea of this killer UFO? How do you pitch this to get your funding?
Well, to me, the pitch here is actually really simple, and I don't think we need to take long. Which is I want to make a UFO movie, but instead of the UFO having little green men on it, the UFO is the creature. Like the UFO is the monster, and that's the surprise. Because I think that is a real good surprise in this film, is that,
yes,
at that point in the story, which was probably about 2/3, I think I clocked it as in a 2.5-hour movie, he reveals that, no, the UFO actually eats people. It's just one whole creature. I think at that point, the next logical step was little green men. So by turning the expectations on us, I reckon that's where the pitch is. So the pitch is to say to someone, we're going to make an alien film, but the alien spaceship is the alien. It's just one alien. It's just a monster. And I think saying that to anyone as from a producing point of view, I think that's like, oh, okay, that's a different take on the same old story.
Immediately you'd have to ask in response to that, like,
well, how is it going to
how does that interact with things? How's that going to work out? And he says, it's going to work very poorly for the humans.
That's right.
Oh.
So, when we normally abduct someone, up that thing, well, then this time it's been abducted and there's eating it like a big monster. And yeah, I think that type of, you can straight away in my head, if someone was saying that to me even before seeing this film, I didn't know that that's what this film was. I went in completely dark. I thought, it's something to do with aliens, okay. So it's unique posture. I mean, over the time I've seen, like we mentioned, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that Communique. I've seen a couple other alien farm ones, Signs. They are all little, even Paul.
Yeah.
It is that traditional little alien person.
I was upset, not upset, but, my expectations were upset by that when I was, expecting, because I was asking myself, okay, and I always ask myself whenever I watch an alien film, is what's their purpose? Why are they flown all the way in this spaceship to get out and terrorize people? Like, why the hell would you do that?
Yeah.
And then I love the answer they had, and Jordan came up with this one was, it hasn't flown here to terrorize. It's been with us. Maybe it's always been with us.
Yeah, maybe it's always on this planet. Maybe it's not an alien.
Yeah, maybe it's actually local, and it eats people. It's not especially intelligent.
No.
Like, it's not composing poetry.
No.
It's eating us.
Yeah, so to me, the pitch is just that point of difference. And I reckon that intrigues. It's the old expression quite often with pitching stories and films is same but different. And that is same but different, So we're going to have all the same sort of tropes that you have in an alien film, but it's going to end up being that the spacecraft is the creature, and it's like Jaws, really. It's a giant big thing that eats things. And, so I think that would be the pitch.
Yeah, I think so. That'd be pretty. That does enlighten me. Like, I often wonder, it's just how these things get pitched. But it's a good way of thinking of it, I think, is what you've just presented there, which is present the it's an aliens abducting people out on a ranch, but the spaceship is the alien and it's eating people.
Yeah.
And
that's as simple as it is, right? Because straight away then it's going to be scary. I could, if someone said that to me, it's like, it's going to be scary. So I know it's kind of in the horror. It's alien, so it's science fiction.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of both. That's kind of cool because we haven't had a spaceship eating people. It also solves the dilemma because quite often people get a bit disappointed when they see the aliens.
Yes.
Because it's always like, the monster. It's like, what is the monster? Well, okay, the monster is the ship. Okay, all right, so that's something a bit different. And then, again, I would start to then say to Jordan, if I'm the producer, it says here, okay, well, how scary is this creature? And he might go, well, like a chimpanzee goes berserk.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, I haven't thought about it. Rips arms and lips off people. Well, this thing's like that. It, gets people, it churns them up, and we're going to see them kind of being squished and churned up, and all their jewelry gets spat out. You'd be like, oh, okay, all right, I'm starting to see something here.
Even that's kind of a bit reminiscent of, say, war movies, Nazi stuff, where you'd get the concentration camp prisoners going off into the nondescript building.
Yeah.
And later on in the film, we see people sorting through jewelry and gold teeth.
So they're dead.
And that's the thing. You sort of it's the same sort of. They've been processed. Yeah. We don't entirely know what's happened. It's not good.
Yeah.
But now we've just got the only things we have to remind them by is like the inorganic stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same but different thing I've heard for a long time, and recently saw Neil Gaiman, the author, talking a bit about that. Like, you can play to people's expectations, but then you can also flip them on the head. You can turn them. So you're right. You're going to write he said something like, pirates. What are some of the expectations of pirates? But then you can turn that at any moment. You can flip that. The audience expects, pirates are going to do some looting and they're going to go dig up treasure and they're going to walk the plank. But that doesn't mean that they're not pirates in space.
Mm.
Just for example. So people in their head think pirates, but yeah, you take them into space and it becomes like, what was, we saw it at the Space Festival, didn't we? You know, it's really cult following.
Ice Pirates?
No. Sean played it to us there.
Like Flash Gordon or John...
No, it goes back a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
You know, it's the Josh Whedon thing.
Oh, yes, of course, Firefly, yes.
Firefly.
Yes.
It's kind of pirates in space, right?
Pirates in space, it's cowboys in space.
Yeah, cowboys in space. Like, it's another thing, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's the same... They could be pirates, you know? They could be cowboys. Like,
like Robin Hood
the same,
in
but
space.
different. Yeah. So, if it's done well, like Jordan Peele does, I think it is a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the audiences flip on their expectations, and that's kind of nice. You know, you go, I like being tricked a bit.
The other way I'd pitch it would be, hey, you know how I made that film that cost almost nothing and earned $1 bajillion? I'm going to make another film.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost too much, but it's going to make $1 bajillion. And the producer goes, can we say that you're the one who's producing it? Yeah, directing it? Yes. Okay.
Sure, go.
Okay,
how much do you want?
The $68 million you need. So what's the film about?
Yeah. And I'm sure that he is probably at that point.
I have a feeling there's been a number of conversations in Hollywood where it is just, hey, you know how I made all that money, and now I just want to do something else. It's going to make a bunch of money.
I promise it'll make
Okay, here's the check. What is it going to be? Aliens turn up on a planet, but they're refugees.
Just go make it some
money. Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Yes. You had me at Aliens, go for it.
Yeah. And I mean, he could probably walk into a room and go, you know how I like to do all that subversive racist stuff? I've got another film about that. Sure. Do you reckon it'll make us money? Yeah, it'll make us money. All right, go for it.
You'll turn a profit on us.
You'll turn a profit.
I mean, and that's sort of what I don't want to cheapen Luke Sparks' efforts, but he basically managed to get enough money for Occupation.
Yeah.
It turned a profit, because it was a low budget. It didn't have to do a lot,
too well, yeah,
but it did well enough.
Yeah.
The investors got their money plus interest back, and so when he turned around and said, "Oh, I'm making part 2,"
yeah,
they said, "Yeah, sure, here you go."
Yeah, we'll give you a bit more.
What do you need this time? Well, if you give me more, I can do all of this like dogfighting and like cool
and
stuff.
Be a bigger audience.
So I think it does work that way as well.
Definitely. Now, speaking of Luke Spark, he's attending the Spacebrains Science Fiction Film Festival 2023, coming very, very soon.
Yeah, it's about a month or so away now.
He's going to be doing a special keynote before we get into the best of the best short films.
He's just announced he's making a new film as well. Check him out on LinkedIn.
He's churning them out now, isn't he? So, he's really growing as a filmmaker.
What's it called? It was a supernatural gladiator. This is his pitch. We're talking about pictures.
Yeah, there you go.
He's going... it's called I can't remember what it's called now, but the project name. But he described it. It just says it's the one sentence.
Bring Him to Me, is it, or is that?
No, Bring Him to Me is the one he's just done, the gangster film.
Sorry, the gangster one.
But it's just as a supernatural gladiators.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. Like, you know, you can imagine all sorts of things there, which is no doubt how they pitch a number of films, like it's robot gladiators. Yeah. There's a supernatural gladiators. That sounds good.
That's right. So, yeah, he will be at the Spacebrains Sci-Fi Festival. We'll be doing a podcast workshop, and Stephen Dedman, award-winning writer, will be running a science fiction film festival. Tickets are selling very fast. By the time you hear this, the workshops may be sold out. I think they're 2/3 sold now. So they are selling they're like hotcakes. They're going fast.
We do have a few extra seats. Like the cinema obviously is a full-size cinema.
It's a lot more.
So there are some more seats there, but they're still moving.
So grab some tickets while you can. You don't want to miss out.
Spread the news.
For me, as a bit of a suggestion for what else to watch around Nope, I would probably go for The Thing.
Oh, yes.
And I'd probably also go Surrogates. And the reason for that is I think something like The Thing, it's actually quite similar.
Yeah, yes.
For this idea I've been talking about all episode, the monster in the dark, it's an alien, blah, 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 terrifying thing. So I think there's a lot of connections there. Surrogates, not at all like that, but I like the idea of a twist, and that's what Surrogates kind of has in it. You know, this idea of you think that that's what the story's about. It's a detective story, murder mystery, but then there's this whole concept of who the people actually are versus the surrogates. And when we learn what the truth is, there's a bit of a reveal. And that's what I felt during Nope, that reveal of the alien being the alien was a reveal to me. So
yeah.
How about you? What films would you maybe suggest to watch around this?
Well, it's funny because I went Pitch Black.
Oh, yeah.
Which not
I'd
only...
agree.
No, it was... I also like that one is kind of that... it had at least two situations there. The three of that... the untamed nature. You know, there's like... You can hide the nature, but it comes out.
Yeah.
And so that's where we had this world... It's empty, apparently, always sunny, apparently. But then it goes dark, and it turns out actually it's a deadly, deadly planet. Far more so than you'd expect. You thought you could manage it, can't. Yeah. But there's also got Riddick in there, who's supposed to be like this crazy-ass serial killer dude who don't care for no one. But it turns out he doesn't want to be that. Like deep down, he actually wants to be accepted. Guy. He wants to be doing things. So I sort of thought that was, and also I just love that film.
You do?
It's a very cool. I just mainly for the themes involved there.
So just go watch it with every other film. You should have put it in as every episode, really.
Every episode, yeah. The other one then is Cargo.
Cargo, yeah.
Cargo, because again, this is the guy becomes a zombie. If you haven't seen Cargo, it's the spoilers. Yeah. Go see it. You would have seen it because you've listened to our episode of Cargo. Yeah. But the guy becomes the zombie to save the child. The child, yeah. Which is, again, it's that inner nature sort of, you think you can beat the zombies, you think you can beat the apocalypse, you think you can survive. Yeah. And it turns out you can't, but if you go with it, if you understand that you can't beat it, then you can get something, you can achieve. And it also had that same sort of, it's a somewhat independent film feel to it. It's got a bit of a different voice and a different view from that Aboriginal perspective. Yeah. With David Gallipoli in there. Yeah. Rest his soul. He's passed on these days. So that film may contain images of past people. That's sort of my trilogy, I'm thinking, going in there.
Right. Good. Yeah, they're interesting ones. So if you're listening out there, what maybe you would suggest or think about maybe, sitting down and watching a couple other films around it that we've looked at. So that brings us to the end of the episode of Nope. Go check it out. It's available on a couple of different streaming platforms. If you're liking the Jordan Peele stuff, I think you will like this. That film. Let us know what you thought about our episode. Think about giving us a review, sharing the podcast, hit us up on socials. All of those things we really appreciate from our audience members, so please do. Buy a ticket to the film festival if you're local, or stay tuned and there'll be some more information about, how successful that film festival is. Let us know what you thought about Nope online, and stay tuned for next episode.
Next episode is
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim.
It's another Del Toro film. Check it out.
Till then.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.